Hannah quits the second life gets hard, my mother said into the microphone, and 38 people at the charity gala stopped chewing. By then, my parents had already forged my withdrawal from my dental hygiene program, taken the $6,240 refund, and told half of Greene County that I had dropped out because I was too immature to finish anything. I did not know yet that the school had a login record, a witness line with the wrong employee name on it, and a refund trail that ended in my mother's checking account at First National on Dayton Xenia Road. Then a woman I had never met stood up in a ballroom that smelled like roast chicken and floor wax, lifted a stapled packet, and read one sentence aloud that changed the whole room. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I always love seeing where you're all listening from. My name is Hannah Elise Mercer. I'm 23 years old. Now let me take you back to Beaver Creek, Ohio on Saturday, April 13th, 2024. My Aunt Denise Mercer had rented the community room at the Green Event Center for a spring charity gala that raised money for the Bellbrook Food Pantry. She organized it every year, and every year she wore the same coral lipstick and a silver bracelet with tiny flat charms that clicked against each other when she poured coffee. The room had round tables with cream tablecloths, folded black napkins, and centerpieces made from grocery store tulips in square glass vases. Someone had used too much lemon cleaner on the buffet doors. I remember that because the smell sat under everything else. My mother, Carla Mercer, loved an audience more than she loved being right. She was 51, always polished, always composed, the kind of woman who said cruel things in a church voice. My father, David Mercer, was 54 and quieter, but not softer. He let her lead when there were witnesses, and he handled details when there were forms to sign or accounts to move. Between the two of them, my life had become surprisingly easy to rearrange. That night I was wearing a navy dress from Target and shoes that hurt by the second hour. I had come straight from my Saturday lunch shift at the Copper Skillet on Indian Ripple Road, where I worked 4 days a week while I finished prerequisites and clinical rotations at Miami Valley Career Institute. I was in my second semester of the dental hygiene program. I had earned my seat after waiting 10 months and retaking anatomy because I got a B- the first time and wanted an A. I paid what grants did not cover with tip money folded into envelopes in my dresser, and one small scholarship from the Greene County Dental Society for $1,200. I need to say this clearly because people hear trade school and think casual. It was not casual. It was a locked schedule, mandatory clinic hours, state competencies, sterilization logs, radiography checkoffs, and the constant smell of fluoride varnish and latex gloves. It was the first thing I had built that did not depend on my parents liking who I was. At 7:42 that night, after the silent auction ended and before the dessert plates came out, Denise tapped a spoon against her water glass and invited a few family members to say thank you to the donors. My mother stood up before anyone asked her to. Of course she did. She smoothed the front of her green dress, took the microphone, and started with the pantry. Then she switched to family. Then she switched to me. You all know Hannah, she said, smiling out at people who had known me since I had baby teeth. She has a generous heart, but she quits the second life gets hard. We are praying this current phase passes too. The room made that polite little half laugh people make when they think something might be a joke and do not want to be rude. 38 guests. I counted later from the seating chart Denise had left by the registration table. My cousin Leah looked at her lap. My uncle Ron stopped cutting his chicken. Denise turned in her chair so sharply that one of her bracelet charms hit her glass. I could hear the hotel ice machine dump a fresh tray from the hallway outside. That is the kind of detail your body keeps when humiliation is public. I stood up and said, "Excuse me." That was all. I did not defend myself. I did not ask my mother what she meant. I did not explain that 3 weeks earlier I had shown up for Monday clinic and been told I was no longer enrolled. The room went quiet. Not the dramatic kind, the administrative kind. The kind where people know a line was crossed and are waiting to see who has the papers. At that point, I had been keeping that folder for 11 months. No, not the evidence folder. That one was newer. I mean the life folder, birth certificate copy, immunization records, FAFSA printouts, transcripts, lease, scholarship letters, class schedules, emergency contact updates, every receipt for tuition and scrubs and exam fees. I started keeping it when I was 19 because things around my parents had a way of becoming misunderstandings unless I could put a date on them. 3 weeks before the gala, on Monday, March 25th at 8:12 in the morning, I walked into Clinic Lab B at Miami Valley Career Institute with a coffee from Speedway and my gray backpack. The floor smelled like disinfectant and wet tile because the custodians had just mopped. My classmate Tessa King was by the lockers clipping her ID to her scrub top. She looked up at me strangely and said, "I thought you withdrew." I actually laughed, just once. A confused sound. "From what?" I asked. She blinked. "The program?" I thought maybe she meant one of my gen ed classes. Maybe billing had flagged something. Maybe there was a scheduling mistake. I was still holding my coffee when Program Director Michaela Ramos came out of her office with a manila file in her hand, and that careful expression administrators use when they think they are being kind. "Hannah, can you come with me?" she said. Her office smelled like peppermint tea and copy toner. There was a little white noise machine on the bookshelf that made rain sounds. She closed the door, set the file on her desk, and said, "We received your voluntary withdrawal form on Friday, effective immediately. You were also removed from spring clinic placement." I stared at her, then at the file. "I did not withdraw," I said. She opened the file, turned it toward me, and there it was. A one-page withdrawal form with my printed name, my student number, a signature that looked enough like mine from a distance to fool someone skimming it, and a witness line signed by Aaron S. Walker. The reason box was checked next to personal and family circumstances. I read it twice, then a third time. "I did not sign this," I said. Michela inhaled slowly. "The form came from your student portal upload and was followed by a phone call confirming you wanted immediate release from the seat." "I never made a phone call." "Then we need to look into that. I can still tell you exactly what my body did. My hands went cold first, then hot. Then my chest got tight. Not panic, administrative panic. The kind where your brain starts sorting tasks before your feelings catch up." I asked for a copy. She hesitated for maybe 2 seconds, then handed me one. I asked what else had happened because of it. She told me my spring clinical assignment at Fairborn Community Dental had been given to the alternate on the wait list. My tuition had been recalculated, and a refund of $6,240 was being processed to the account on file. "What account on file?" I asked. She looked at the screen. "Checking account ending in 3108. That was my mother's account. I had used that account for one deposit refund when I was 17 and dual enrolled because she insisted all school money should stay visible to the family. I thought I had changed everything after I opened my own account at Wright Pat Credit Union in 2022. "Apparently not all of it," I said. "Please stop the refund." Michelle said she would try, but because the withdrawal had already triggered the business office workflow on Friday at 4:27 p.m., there was no guarantee. She printed the disbursement page for me, recalculated tuition, lost clinical seat, refund pending, time-stamped entries, names of staff. It was all very neat, which somehow made it worse. If you have ever had that moment where you know everything is about to change, and you also know you need to stay calm for one more hour, then you know exactly what that office felt like. The chair under me was blue vinyl, my coffee had gone cold in my hand, and I understood all at once that this was not a family argument. This was a paper crime. Keep listening, because what I found in the next 48 hours is why my mother should never have chosen forms over gossip. And if you're connecting with this story, this is a good moment to like and subscribe. I left campus at 9:04 and sat in my 2011 Honda Civic in the back lot near the dumpsters because it was the only place without foot traffic. The air freshener had long since stopped smelling like vanilla, but if I pressed it with my thumbnail, I could still get a little scent. I called my mother first. She answered on the third ring. "Hannah, I am at the salon. Did you withdraw me from school?" I asked. Silence for 1 second. Then she said, "You are welcome." I looked at the steering wheel. There was a little crack in the left side leather wrap where my thumbnail always caught. "You forged my name." "No," she said. "I corrected a problem you were too emotional to handle. You have been drowning for months. Your father and I agreed that stepping away was best. You took my refund. It came back to the family account where it belonged, that word." I said, "I need you to say clearly whether you signed my name." She lowered her voice, which was how she always got crueler. "You are 23, Hannah. If you wanted the privileges of adulthood, You should have been prepared for the consequences. Dental hygiene was a phase. I hung up. Then I called my father. He answered immediately, like he had been waiting. "This is not how you speak to your mother," he said, before I said anything. "Did you do this too?" "What we did," he said, "was prevent a larger mistake." The program office was relieved, frankly. They know you have not been stable. I had never been in a psychiatric unit. I had no diagnosis besides seasonal allergies and migraines. But my parents liked vague words because vague words travel. "I want the $6,240 returned today." He made a little sound into the receiver. Not quite a laugh. "That money has already been allocated." Allocated. I did not scream. I did not threaten them. Instead, I opened the Notes app and typed everything they had just said while it was still warm. At 10:31 that morning, I went back inside the school and asked to speak to the registrar. Her name was Linda Puckett, 60 maybe, white bob haircut, rhinestone reading glasses on a chain. She smelled faintly of coffee grounds and cedar hand lotion. I said I need every access record attached to my student portal from March 20th through March 25th, and I need to know whether the witness named on my withdrawal form was physically present when it was signed. She did not smile. That was one of the first good signs. "You can request a portal access printout from IT," she said. "As for the witness, Erin Walker does not work in student services." I felt my whole body go still. "Then why is she on my form?" Linda looked at it and frowned. "Erin Walker worked here 6 years ago in admissions. She lives in Cleveland now. Whoever filled this out pulled an old name from somewhere." There are moments when a person tells you the truth without yet understanding how much it matters. This was one of them. Linda gave me the email for IT. She also told me the business office manager was named Paul Neeran, and that if the refund had not fully settled yet, he could at least tell me where it was going. By 11:15, I was sitting in Paul Neeran's office with a yellow legal pad and my phone on airplane mode because I wanted no interruptions. Paul was one of those men who always looked like he had just come in from the cold. Red cheeks, dry hands, tie slightly off center. He printed the refund routing page, account owner, Carla Mercer, bank, First National Bank, Beaver Creek branch. Routing number, last updated January 12, 2021. "I did not authorize that account after turning 18, I said. He tapped the screen. "The update came through your parent access profile from the financial aid side. We still had her attached because of prior tax documentation and because nobody marked the parent portal inactive." I wrote down every word. By noon, I had 4 things in my folder: the forged withdrawal form, the refund routing page, the staff names, the date and time of the portal upload. By 6 p.m., I had 6 more. My friend Olivia Hart was one of them. We had known each other since 7th grade at Ankeny Middle School, and she was in her 2nd year as a legal assistant at a small firm in Zania. Not a lawyer, and I know the difference, but she knew how to think in records. We sat in the booth at Cherry House Cafe on North Detroit Street at 6:30 that evening. The place smelled like espresso and grilled onions because their kitchen vent never fully separated breakfast from dinner. I laid out the copies. She read every page in silence. Then she said, "Do not text them emotionally. Text for admissions." What does that mean? It means every message is bait for evidence. Ask short questions that force a yes or no. Save screenshots, export everything. Make a timeline tonight. So I did. At 7:14 p.m., I texted my mother, "Did you sign my withdrawal form for Miami Valley Career Institute on Friday, March 22nd? At 7:16, she replied, "I completed paperwork you were avoiding." At 7:17, I texted, "Did you tell the school I wanted to leave immediately?" At 7:20, she replied, "I told them the truth, which is that you were not coping." My father answered even more cleanly. At 7:29, I texted, "Did you authorize the school refund to be sent to account ending 3108? At 7:31, he wrote, "Yes. That account has historically received school-related funds." I screenshotted all of it with timestamps visible. Then I exported the thread to email and saved PDFs in a folder labeled March Fraud. Olivia helped me make subfolders: calls, texts, school records, financial witnesses. We were 23 and 24. Drinking coffee we could not really afford, and somehow building a case against my parents between the pie display and the restroom hallway. That night, I slept maybe 3 hours. At 2:12 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of rain hitting my apartment window unit and remembered one more detail: parent access profile. I logged into my financial aid portal from bed and found a profile section I had not checked in over a year. There she was, Carla Mercer. Authorized parent contact. Refund communication, yes. Payment review, yes. I took screenshots until my battery hit 8%. Now let me take you back to Tuesday, March 26th at 9:10 in the morning in the parking lot behind my apartment on North Fairfield Road. It was cold enough that my breath showed. I had a folder on the passenger seat and an empty granola bar wrapper in the cup holder. That was the morning my parents realized I was not going to cry and return home. That was when they escalated. My landlord, Mr. Vijay Patel, called me while I was waiting for the light to change at Dayton, Xenia, and Kemp. He spoke fast when he was nervous. Hannah, I got a call from your mother last night. She said you were leaving the state and needed to break your lease due to mental health treatment. Is that accurate? I pulled into the Walgreens lot so hard I got the tire against the curb. No, I said. Please do not discuss my tenancy with my parents. He was quiet for a second. She also asked whether we would waive damages if family returned the keys. Family returned the keys. I said, I'm not moving. If anyone except me asks about that apartment, call me immediately. He agreed. I wrote down the time, 9:12 a.m. Then I asked if he would email me a summary of the call because I was trying to correct misinformation. He did. At 9:27. Subject line, per your request. The email included her exact phrase, leaving for treatment in Indiana. I had never been to Indiana for anything except IKEA in Fishers once with Olivia. At 10:03, my program director called. Michaela Ramos again. I could hear typing in the background and one of those office phones with the aggressive ring. Hannah, I need to make you aware that your mother called this morning and said she was your emergency contact and needed confirmation that you had fully surrendered your seat. I told her I could not discuss your enrollment without your permission. I gripped the wheel. Thank you. She also said you had a history of impulsive reversals and that the family needed us not to let you back in if you changed your mind. That sentence told me everything. This was not a one-time theft. This was containment. They wanted the money? Yes, but they also wanted the story. They wanted me positioned as unreliable so the forged form would feel believable. I said, can you please email me exactly what was said? She paused. I can document the call in an internal note and send you a summary. Please do. By noon she had 11:48 a.m. Internal call note attached. Caller identified as Carla Mercer. Requested confirmation of seat surrender. Described student as emotionally volatile. Asked whether student could reverse withdrawal. Staff declined discussion due to FERPA restrictions. I printed that too. If you have ever been the person calmly writing things down while somebody else tries to turn your whole life into a character flaw, I want you to hear me on this. Writing it down is not cold. It is survival. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you about the one family member who knew enough to stop this early and stayed silent anyway. That part mattered almost as much as the forgery. The silent one was my older brother's wife, Marissa. She was not cruel. I almost wish she had been. Cruel people are easier. Marissa was 30, careful, conflict allergic, and permanently trying to keep peace between people who never asked for peace, only control. On Wednesday, March 27th at 4:30 in the afternoon, she asked if we could meet in the parking lot behind St. Bridget's thrift store because she did not want Mom seeing my car at your place. That sentence alone told me enough. Her silver Subaru Outback smelled like baby wipes and stale crackers because my niece's car seat was in the back. She kept both hands around a paper cup from Dunkin' and would not look directly at me for the first minute. Then she said, I need to tell you something, and I am not proud of the delay. She had been at my parents' house on Friday, March 22nd, around 3 in the afternoon to drop off hand-me-down clothes for a church drive. She had seen my mother at the dining room table with my laptop open, my old laptop, the one I had left there in January because the hinge was loose and I was using a loaner from school. My mother had asked for my password months earlier to print tax forms, and I had been stupid enough to give it to her because I thought changing it later was enough. Apparently, my browser had saved more than I realized. Marissa said she heard my father say, use the witness name from the old packet. Nobody checks those. Then my mother said, once the refund settles, she will stop pretending this was a career. I felt something in me close. Why didn't you call me Friday? I asked. Marissa cried immediately, which irritated me more than if she had defended herself. Your mother said you were spiraling and that if anyone interfered, it could set you back. She made it sound medical, another vague word. Did you see the form? I asked. I saw her signing. I did not know what the document was until after. Do you know whether the refund hit? She nodded. Your dad moved money from your mother's account Monday morning. I only know because I was there picking up Lily and he asked your brother whether 5,000 should go to the Visa or the line of credit first. There it was, allocated. I asked Marissa to write down everything she remembered with date, time, who said what, and where she was standing. She hesitated, then she did. In my car, with my spare pen on loose leaf paper torn from the back of a spiral notebook she found in her glove box. It was not glamorous evidence, it was stronger because it was ordinary. That night, I changed every password I had. School, email, bank, utilities, even my grocery app. Then I called Right Pat Credit Union and asked them to flag any outside transfer requests and remove every emergency contact except me. The woman on the phone was named Patrice. She had a smooth voice like she had spent 10 years talking people out of bad decisions. At 8:56 p.m., she said, I also recommend you request account access logs and put a verbal passphrase on file. I said, can the passphrase be something ridiculous? She laughed once. It usually helps if it is memorable. I made it Blue Toaster. I still have it. Thursday, March 28th, was the day I learned how easy institutions can be to weaponize when parents have spent years practicing reasonableness. At 1:17 p.m., my academic advisor forwarded me a voicemail transcript left by my father. He said, we are concerned Hannah may appear on campus in an agitated state and try to force her way back into clinic. We want to prevent disruption. I was standing in the cereal aisle at Kroger when I read that email. I could smell sugar and cardboard and the bakery section nearby. A woman with two little boys was arguing with one of them about marshmallow cereal while my father was trying to build a record that I was dangerous enough to keep out. I left the cart where it was and sat in my car. I did not call him. I did not defend myself to my advisor. Instead, I wrote a measured email to the Student Services Dean, copied the registrar and program director, and attached the forged withdrawal, the texts admitting they had completed paperwork, and Michaela's call note showing my mother was trying to lock the withdrawal in place after the fact. I asked for 3 things in plain language: freeze the refund if possible, preserve all electronic access logs tied to my student account, mark my parents as unauthorized to discuss my enrollment in any capacity. At 4:42 p.m., Dean Carla Whitmore replied, understood, we are escalating this to compliance and IT security. That email was the first time I believed I might actually get my seat back. The compliance coordinator assigned to my case was named Nadine Sloan. I had never met her. She was in her 40s, wore square torch-shell glasses, and spoke in short, dry sentences that made me trust her immediately. On Friday, March 29th at 9 a.m., she called me from a number with no caller ID. I was in my apartment in socks, standing beside the window because reception was better there. I am not calling to reassure you, she said. I am calling to tell you what we can prove so far. I actually sat down on the floor. She told me the withdrawal form had been uploaded from an IP address registered to Mercer Family Auto Repair on Factory Road in Xenia, which was my father's shop office. The follow-up phone call confirming my withdrawal came from the landline at the same shop at 4:31 p.m. The witness name on the form belonged to a former employee not currently associated with the school, and the electronic parent profile update that routed refunds to my mother's account had been changed in January 2021 from an IP address linked to my parents' home internet on South Alpha Bellbrook Road. I said nothing for a second because relief can feel like pain when it finally lands. Nadine continued, the refund has already settled. We cannot reverse it directly from the bank, but your seat was surrendered based on fraudulent paperwork, and we are moving to reinstate you if the clinical site will take you back. I asked her what I should do next. Keep documenting. Do not warn them what we know, and if they contact staff again, tell me immediately. I had to cover my mouth with my hand, not because I was crying, because my body wanted to make noise and I needed it not to. That is how long it took them to erase me. 6 days on paper, less than that in conversation. Now let me take you back to Sunday, March 31st, at 12:20 in the afternoon, in my parents' kitchen on South Alpha Bellbrook Road, ham in the oven, cinnamon candles too sweet for spring, the dishwasher humming. That was Easter, and it was the first time I looked directly at them after I knew where the form came from. I only went because Denise asked me to. She said, "Do not let them turn your absence into another story." She was right. There were 14 people there. My brother Caleb and Marissa with their daughter, Uncle Ron, Denise, two neighbors from church, my grandmother's old friend Loretta. My parents moved around the kitchen like hosts on a cooking show. My mother wore pearl earrings. My father carved meat at the island with his reading glasses on his nose. It was all very domestic. At 1:06, while people were carrying plates to the table, my mother stepped close enough that I could smell her perfume. White diamonds, the same one she had worn since I was 13. "You are making this larger than it needs to be," she said softly. "The school appreciated our honesty," I said. "Return the money." She smiled without warmth. "It has gone toward obligations you benefited from." My father did not look up from the carving board when he added, "Do not embarrass yourself by chasing administrative confusion." Administrative confusion. Their language was always a little too tidy. Then Denise, who had been refilling iced tea by the sink, said, "Carla, stop speaking to her like she is 12." My mother turned to her with that blank, polished face she used before saying something poisonous. "I'm trying to save her from herself," she said. Nobody answered. That is what silence looks like in families like mine. It is not agreement, it is surrender by habit. After lunch, I walked out to the backyard with Denise. The grass was wet from morning rain and my flats sank at the heel. A neighbor was grilling somewhere nearby and I could smell lighter fluid. Denise folded her arms and looked at the fence, not me. "I need to tell you something," she said. She had helped my mother gather old school records in February because Carla told her she was fixing tax paperwork for my financial aid file. Denise had pulled a banker box from the hall closet that included one of my old admissions packets. That was likely where my mother got Aaron Walker's name. Denise did not realize it at the time. When she heard the gala speech on April 13th, the line about me quitting, she said later that something in her stomach turned because it sounded rehearsed. But standing in the yard at Easter, she only knew she had unknowingly helped with part of it. "I should have asked more questions," she said. "Yes," I said. That was all. I did not comfort her. She did not ask me to. If you have ever had to stand in the middle of a family event and realize how many people helped by doing nothing, then you know this part. The betrayal is never one clean act. It is the main blow and then all the cushions arranged around it so nobody has to call it violence. But keep listening, because the next week is when the outside world started saying back to them what I had been saying alone. On Tuesday, April 2nd at 3:18 p.m., Nadine Sloan emailed me a formal school summary. I know I'm not supposed to talk like a lawyer, so let me put it plainly. It was the school's written statement saying, in careful staff language, that my withdrawal did not come from me, the supporting electronic records did not match my account use, and the school was restoring my student status. Fairborn Community Dental had already given my clinical seat away, but another site in Kettering agreed to take me starting April 15th if I completed 2 makeup lab blocks and 1 Saturday infection control session. I read that email 6 times on my break at work. Then I clocked back in and served a family of 5 pancakes and eggs while my knees shook. The money was harder. The school could restore my seat. It could not make my parents return $6,240 they had already moved. Nadine told me I had 2 options in real-life terms. I could ask the bank what happened and see whether they would flag the transfer due to fraudulent authorization, and I could ask the school for a letter I could use if I needed to recover the money through other channels later. She did not tell me to take them to court. She did not tell me to go to police. She just kept putting me in rooms where records existed. So, on Thursday, April 4th at 11 in the morning, I went to First National Bank in Beaver Creek. The branch sat in a low brick strip near the dry cleaner, and the lobby smelled like copier heat and lemon hand sanitizer. I asked to speak to a manager. The woman who came out was named Angela Brewer, mid-50s, smooth navy blazer. Nail polish the exact color of blackberries. I told her a school refund issued in my name was deposited into an account controlled by my mother after a forged withdrawal form removed me from my program. I need the deposit confirmation and any subsequent transfer information you can legally discuss with me. She looked at my school letter, then at the routing page, then at my ID. Are you an account owner? She asked. No. Then I cannot release her transactions, but I can confirm whether an item matching that amount posted and whether we have received notice of dispute. I waited. She typed for maybe 40 seconds. Then she said a deposit of $6,240.00 posted on March 26th at 8:12 a.m. By 10:47 a.m., $5,000 was transferred to a Visa ending 9221 and $1,180 was transferred to a home equity line. $60 remained in the account until regular spending reduced it. I almost laughed because the number was so petty. $60. Can you print that? She hesitated. Then she printed a deposit verification and a general transaction summary without full account details, enough to show movement, not enough to violate policy, exactly the kind of paper that matters. At 1:20 that afternoon, Olivia and I sat in my car outside and looked at the page together. They used your education refund to pay down their credit card and house debt before lunch, she said. Before lunch, I repeated. That line stayed with me on Friday, April 5th. I sent one last short text to my father. Return the $6,240 by Monday at 5 p.m. He replied at 3:14 p.m. We will not be extorted by a child over family expenditures. I saved that too. Then came the part nobody tells you about when they say, document everything. You still have to live. You still have to do laundry and get gas and smile at table 7 and study tooth morphology while your parents are trying to make your life sound fictional. My re-entry packet arrived, my replacement clinical site called. I bought a new pack of pens and a white 3-ring binder because the old one made me angry to look at. And all through that week my mother kept talking. She told church women I had stepped away from school for emotional reasons. She told my grandmother's friend Loretta that I was considering a move. She told Denise I should not be allowed to reverse a family decision in public. There is something eerie about hearing your own life described as if it belongs to a board instead of a person. The gala on April 13th was supposed to be ordinary. Denise almost canceled my parents' invitation after Easter, but she didn't want the fundraiser punished for family drama. She asked me if I still wanted to come. I said yes, not because I was brave, because I knew Nadine had agreed to stop by for 10 minutes on her way to another event and deliver a sealed school packet to me in person. That was all. Just hand me the packet. Nobody planned a confrontation. Nobody planned a scene, but my mother always did better with a microphone than a boundary. By the time the gala started at 6 p.m., I had my folder in my tote bag, a printed copy of the reinstatement letter, and exactly zero intention of speaking unless I had to. The room at Green Event Center was colder than it should have been. You could hear silverware against plates too clearly. A volunteer pianist near the entrance kept playing soft standards that made everything feel falsely civilized. Denise was moving between tables, checking bid sheets. My father was at table 4 with 2 men from church, talking about alternators. My mother was at table 2 near the microphone stand, already collecting people with her body language. She liked to plant herself near any place where narrative might happen. At 6:28, Nadine texted parking, 2 minutes. At 6:31, she came in wearing a charcoal jacket over a blue shell and carrying a large envelope. She looked exactly like someone there to drop off routine paperwork. Nobody notices women like that until they should have. I stood up from table 6 to meet her. Before I could, Denise got intercepted by the caterer, and then the auction winner for a spa basket wanted a photo, and then my mother saw me looking toward the door and decided it meant she should take control of the room. At 7:42, she took the microphone and said, "Hannah quits the second life gets hard. I already told you that part. What I have not told you is what happened in the 6 seconds after. 1. The half laugh from the nearest table. 2. Denise saying Carla under her breath. 3. Nadine stopping beside the registration table and turning her head. 4. My father setting down his coffee cup. 5. Me standing up. 6. Silence. I said, "Excuse me." Nadine stepped forward, not quickly, not dramatically, just with the energy of a person changing rooms because her task has become easier. "Are you Hannah Mercer?" she asked. "Yes. I am Nadine Sloan with Miami Valley Career Institute. I have the compliance packet you requested. Since we are all here, I should hand you the corrected record and the notice concerning the fraudulent withdrawal." She did not know exactly what room she was in. Or maybe she did, but professionally did not care. Either way, it was perfect. 38 faces turned toward her. My mother still had the microphone in one hand. "I think this is not the place," she said. Nadine looked at her once, then back at me. "The place does not affect the records." That sentence was so dry and so final that I still think about it when I need courage. She opened the envelope, removed 3 stapled packets, and because my hands were full with my bag, she read the first line aloud while handing them over. School review found the withdrawal submitted March 22nd was not completed by student Hannah Elise Mercer and was supported by unauthorized access from an external IP associated with Mercer Family Auto Repair. Nobody moved, then she read the next line because the packet had separated awkwardly and she was making sure I got all of it. Parent contact Carla Mercer attempted follow-up communication to confirm seat surrender after the fraudulent withdrawal had already been processed. The room did not gasp. Real rooms rarely gasp. They go very still and very practical. I heard a fork hit a plate. Somewhere in the kitchen, a tray rolled over tile. My father stood up halfway and said, "There has been a misunderstanding." Then he stopped on the word misunderstanding like his mouth had lost its place. Denise asked, very clearly, "Carla, did you take school money from Hannah's program?" My mother set the microphone on the podium with a small click, not slammed, placed. That was her tell when she was trying to preserve dignity she had already lost. "This is family administration," she said. "Administration?" Denise repeated. I took the printed bank verification from my bag and handed it to Denise, not to my mother. Denise read it. Then she read the amount aloud because some people only understand numbers when they hear them in the room. Deposit of $6,240 to Carla Mercer's account on March 26th. 5,000 transferred to Visa ending 9221 at 10:47 a.m. 1,180 transferred to home equity line. My Uncle Ron let out a sound through his nose like a short engine failure. Leah covered her mouth. One of the church women at table 3 whispered, "Oh my God." My mother said that money paid obligations that benefited this household for years. I said, "I do not live in your house." It was the first full sentence I had spoken to her that night. Then Denise, who had been quiet through too much of my life, did the thing I still love her for. She called across the room, "Michelle, can you come here a second?" I had not known program director Michelle Ramos was also attending. Denise had invited half the county because the pantry needed sponsors. Michelle walked over from table 1 with her water glass in hand, looking tired and deeply annoyed. Denise asked, "Do schools usually let mothers withdraw adult daughters from professional programs and send the money to themselves?" Michaela said, "No. And for clarity, we restored Hannah's status because the withdrawal was fraudulent." Clarity, such a gentle word for a blade. If you have ever waited months for one clean sentence from someone outside the family, you know what that feels like, not triumph. Release, your body stops working so hard to keep reality upright by itself. But there was still one more thing that had to land, and it came from the person who had stayed silent too long. Marissa stood up from table 5 with my niece on her hip. Her voice shook. "I hate to admit I noticed that first. I was at the house when they did it," she said. "I saw Carla using Hannah's laptop at the dining room table, and I heard David say to use the witness name from the old packet." No one interrupted her. "I should have said it sooner," she added. "I am saying it now." My father looked at her like he had never seen her before. My mother did not look at her at all. She looked at the floral arrangement in the center of table 2 as if she could outweight the room. Nadine, still standing there with the calm of a woman whose entire job was records, said, "For what it is worth, the witness listed, Aaron Walker, was not employed by the school and was documented to be in Cleveland that day. We confirmed that yesterday." Yesterday she said it like weather. My father checked the exit doors like he had measured them. Nobody at my table touched dessert. The fallout started before the coffee service ended. First, Denise asked the MC to move on with the live auction because she was still raising money for a food pantry and refused to let my parents turn the event into a theater piece. That practical choice somehow made everything harsher. The room did not dissolve. It absorbed what happened and kept going, which meant people had to sit there with the truth on the table beside their bread plates. Second, two board members from the pantry quietly pulled Denise aside and asked whether Carla should still remain treasurer of the Donor Outreach Committee. Denise said, "Not after tonight." They told Carla on Monday morning that she was being removed immediately from all fundraising and account handling until further notice. On Thursday, she received a written notice that the board had voted to end her volunteer position entirely due to concerns about document integrity and donor trust. That was one concrete price. Third, my father lost something smaller but more personal to him. Mercer Family Auto Repair had serviced cars for 3 church families who were in that room. By the end of the next week, all 3 had moved their business to a shop on North Monroe Drive in Xenia. One of them had a fleet account for 2 plumbing vans and a personal truck. My brother told me later my father stood in the office on April 22nd, staring at the canceled service calendar while the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Specific loss, nameable loss, but the largest price was money, and that took a little longer. On Monday, April 15th at 9:16 a.m., I started at my replacement clinical site in Kettering. The office smelled like mint polish, gloves, and that faint toasted dust scent older HVAC systems get in spring. I was in Celia blue scrubs, trying to remember that my life was moving again, when my phone buzzed in my locker. Denise had texted, "Call me at lunch, it matters." At 12:43, I sat in my car and called her. She said, "Your mother just came by the pantry office asking for copies of old reimbursement forms. She said she needed them because Hannah is threatening to involve authorities." I said nothing. Then Denise said, "I told her if she did not return your $6,240 by Friday, I would personally hand over the gala packet, the school letter, and Marissa's written statement to anyone who asked." That sounds dramatic, but Denise was not a dramatic woman. She was a payroll manager at a veterinary supply company in Springfield for 20 years. She believed in receipts and exact lunch breaks. When she made a promise about paper, people took it seriously. By Wednesday, April 17th, my mother had called 3 times and left 2 voicemails. Her voice was low and precise. "Hannah, we need to resolve this privately. Hannah, your aunt is turning a misunderstanding into humiliation. Hannah, if you continue down this road, there will be consequences for everyone." I saved them all. On Thursday evening at 6:02, my father texted, "Meet us at the house tomorrow at 4. Bring your banking information." Not an apology, not even close, just logistics. As if he were scheduling a tire pickup. I did not go alone. Olivia came with me and waited in the car at the curb because that was enough of a witness to matter if anything got strange. I walked into my parents' house at 4 p.m. sharp on Friday, April 19th. The hallway smelled like lemon polish and pot roast. The clock over the kitchen archway was 3 minutes fast, as always. My mother had a cashier's check on the dining room table. Amount $6,240, paid to the order of Hannah Elise Mercer. Beside it was a typed 1-page statement that said in stiff language that the funds represented reimbursement of school monies previously received in error. Received in error. They could not even write the word stole. I read it and said, "This does not mention the forged withdrawal." My father said, "Take the check." I looked at him. "It mentions the forged withdrawal or I leave it." My mother folded her hands. "You're enjoying this?" "No," I said. "I am finishing it." Silence. Then my father took out a pen, crossed out one line, and wrote by hand, including funds associated with withdrawal paperwork submitted without student authorization. He initialed it. My mother initialed it. I took a photo of the page before touching the check. That was the second concrete price. They had to pay it back in full, in a form I could deposit that day, with wording I could use later if I ever needed to prove why. I deposited the check at Wright Pat Credit Union at 4:48 p.m. Patrice was there and remembered me. She looked at the amount and said, "Good." That was all. Just good. Sometimes that is the best kind of witness. Now, some of you are probably wondering whether that was enough. Whether a volunteer position and some lost customers and a forced repayment count as justice after your own parents tried to reroute your future through a forged form. The answer is yes and no. Yes, because consequences matter most when they attach directly to what people value. My mother valued public respect and access to money. She lost both. My father valued being seen as the rational one and running his shop without community suspicion. He lost that too. But no, because getting my seat back did not give me back the 3 weeks of nausea, the panic, the replacement clinical scramble, the way I now check every account twice before bed. The school had one more piece of business with them. On Monday, April 22nd, Nadine emailed me that Miami Valley Career Institute had permanently removed both of my parents from all student contact permissions and documented the incident internally as fraudulent third-party interference. She also wrote that if either parent contacted staff about my enrollment again, the school would direct communications through their security office. That was the third concrete price. They lost access officially. In writing, I printed that email too. The months after that were quieter on the surface and heavier underneath. I went back to clinic. I learned a new sterilization setup at the Kettering site. I finished competencies I should never have had to repeat. Summer came in all at once, and the parking lot outside the office smelled like hot asphalt and fresh cut grass. I still worked weekends at the Copper Skillet. Life resumed, but not in the old shape. My mother tried a few soft entries. On Sunday, May 12th at 8:10 p.m., she mailed a Mother's Day card to my apartment with no return address, though of course I knew her handwriting. Inside, she wrote, "Families survive things said in stress. Not things done, things said." I put it in my file. On Thursday, June 6th at 7:23 a.m., my father texted, "Your brake lights are out. I saw you at Kemp Road. Bring the car by the shop and I will handle it." He had not seen me. He had seen my car somewhere and wanted to sound helpful. I replied, "Do not contact me about my vehicle." Then I blocked his number for 60 days. Denise kept in touch. So did Marissa, carefully. We are not close in the easy way. We are close in the after way, which is more honest. Once, in July, she said, "I still cannot believe they did it over a school program." I said, "It was never over a school program." She nodded because by then she understood it was over movement. It was over me choosing a life that did not route through their approval. If you have ever had to explain to someone that the money was real but the control was the point, you know how tiring that is? People want one motive because it makes evil feel organized. Family betrayal is usually more efficient than that. They wanted my refund. They wanted my seat gone. They wanted the story of me softened into a flaw they could narrate to other people. And they wanted all of it to happen with enough paperwork that I would doubt my own memory for at least a week. They almost got the week. By August, word had spread enough in our church circle that my parents stopped attending the early service and switched to a smaller Saturday evening one in Dayton where fewer people knew details. My mother's friend group narrowed. My father stopped handling community fundraiser car maintenance because Denise and two others made sure he was no longer the first name suggested. Their world did not collapse. I'm not going to lie for drama. It narrowed, it became less automatic. That is often the real cost. On Monday, September 9th, I passed my state board exam. The testing center in Columbus smelled like pencil shavings and overworked air conditioning. When the proctor handed me the printout with pass at the top, I went to my car and sat there for 4 full minutes before starting the engine. Not because I was emotional, because I was tired in a deep, old way. I called Olivia first, then Denise. I did not call my parents. A week later, Denise brought me a small cake from Dorothy Lane Market with white frosting and strawberries on top. We ate it in my apartment kitchen with plastic forks because I had not unloaded the dishwasher. She asked if I planned to tell Carla and David when I got hired. I said they can hear it from someone else, and they did. In October, I accepted a full-time position at Oakview Family Dental in Centerville, starting at $29 an hour, with benefits after 90 days. The office manager, Elaine Foster, had been one of the people at the gala. She never mentioned that night in the interview. She just looked at my clinical scores and references and asked practical questions. When she called me with the offer on October 3rd at 2:11 in the afternoon, I was in the laundry aisle at Major comparing dryer sheets. That is where some of the biggest moments happen, under fluorescent lights. Holding detergent. I said yes. What I felt then was not triumph. Not the movie version, it was steadiness, like my life had moved back under my own feet. I saw my mother once after that, in person, by accident. It was December 14th, a Saturday, at Trader Joe's in Kettering. She was near the seasonal cookies, hair done, camel coat, controlled as ever. She looked at my cart, saw the cheap flowers and frozen orange chicken, and then looked at me. "You made this unnecessarily public," she said. I said, "You made it necessary." She opened her mouth like she had prepared something else, then closed it. That was it. No dramatic scene beside the peppermint pretzels, just two women in a grocery store, one of whom had tried to write the other's life in permanent ink and failed. It has been almost 3 years now since the forged withdrawal. I'm 26 as I tell you this. I still work in dental hygiene. I moved out of Beaver Creek in 2025 and into a small townhouse in a different city where nobody knows my family first. My hair is longer now. I still keep folders. People ask when they hear a version of this story whether I ever forgave them. I think that question is often a little lazy. Forgiveness is treated like the neat final page because other people are uncomfortable with damage that remains visible. Here's the truthful answer. I do not wake up angry every day. I do not rehearse speeches in the shower. I do not need revenge anymore because the records did what they needed to do. But I also do not hand my life back to people who forged me out of it once already. My mother sends a text on some holidays. My father sent one on my last birthday that just said, "Hope you are well." I have not blocked them forever. I have them on a silence filter and a separate folder because that is where they belong now. Managed, documented, not trusted. Denise and I are closer than we were before. Marissa and I talk sometimes mostly about practical things and once in a while about what courage costs when you marry into a family like mine. Caleb stays out of it, which tells its own story. My parents still live in the same house on South Alpha Bellbrook Road. The clock over the archway is probably still 3 minutes fast. The $6,240 came back. The seat came back. My mother lost her committee role. My father lost clients. The school cut both of them off permanently. Those are facts, they matter. But the part that stays with me is smaller. It is the image of that stapled packet in Nadine Sloan's hand at the charity gala. The dry way she said, "The place does not affect the records." The way truth can enter a room wearing sensible shoes and carrying routine paper and still leave a permanent mark. That is what I learned. You do not always need the loudest moment. You need the cleanest one. You need the right document, the right witness, and the patience not to waste either before the room is ready. And if you are in the middle of something like this right now, if someone who should love you is trying to rearrange your life on paper and call it concern, hear me clearly. Save everything, date everything, ask short questions, keep copies outside the house, tell one steady person, then let the truth land where it cannot be talked over. I won, and I am glad I won, but I do not confuse winning with undoing. They are not the same thing. Some damage leaves a scar shaped exactly like a signature.